you're a beginner photographer and you've ever tried to edit your raw photos, have you ever looked at them and said to yourself, why do my edits look so bad? Today I'm going to show you some editing skills that you can use to make your photos better. Starting off with the first tip is color. I'm going to show you on my computer. So this is the unedited photo and this is the edited one. As you can see, apart from the minor adjustments, I tuned it up a bit here on the color wheels. What the color wheels do is they add some color to the parts of the image that you tell it to. So for example, you can separate it by shadows, highlights, midtones, or you can do it in the whole image. In this one, I did it specifically. I didn't do it for the whole image, but this is the difference without and with. I believe it gave a more like sunset type of look to the image because I gave it a little bit of magenta and orange. I'm gonna show you how I did it to achieve this type of look. So firstly, what I like to do is, especially if your lens has a lot of distortion, like mine does a bit of vignetting and distortion, I like to activate the lens corrections in Lightroom. What this does is undistort your image and remove any vignetting that your lens may be causing, so you have total freedom in your image. Next, one of the things I almost always bump up in my photos just a little bit is vibration. If you feel like your image needs a bit more color, but you shouldn't be bumping saturation because that makes your image look really artificial, just bump up the vibration up a bit to like 12, and you can see it looks a bit more vibrant, but not too unnatural. Next, I took the shadows up a bit to get a little bit more detail, and the highlights down to get a bit more contrast on the sky and the highlights. And then I brought the blacks down a bit to get a little more contrast on those shadows. So every time you bring your shadows up to get some more detail in the shadows, I recommend you to pull your blacks down so you can get some of that contrast back and your image doesn't look all like washed up. Now moving on to what I was really talking about, the color. Right here you have your color wheels. So you can either see all three of them like this, or you can choose them individually. So I like to choose them individually because you get a bit more control over them. It's easier to move them. So what I did is I got a bit of magenta in the midtones. Also, one thing you should note is you never want to get too much saturation on this. It's always like minor adjustments to get some type of stylized look into your image, but never too much to the point I'm going to show you where it looks like this. This just looks like bad. It doesn't look good. So you just get like, I always do between 9 to 12 saturation maximum. So you get some decent color, but not too saturated where it looks unnatural. Then in the shadows, a bit of orange. Give that summer sunsetty look. To adjust this, you can pick the color in the color wheel and pick it as you like. But me personally, I just like to get the average color that I want and then adjust the saturation by holding this little dark outline circle and dragging it down to the saturation I want. So for example right here to about 9, and then you can press and hold on this color wheel and you can change the color and see what looks best on your image. In this one I'm liking a more orange look, but that's personal preference to you. And then to balance it out, I got a little bit of green on the highlights, just a little bit. So you balance out these two colors. As you can see, it's colors that are creating a triangle. And most of the times when you do that, your image is gonna look good. It's gonna look composed. And I really like that technique. It works really well for me. And as you can see, it's already a pretty big difference in the image. Let's see the before and after. So a lot more color on there. I think it looks really good. Also, I bumped down the blues a bit because there is a lot of blue in this image. And then I adjusted it to be a bit more of this blue rather than purple. So it's basically the same right now. It doesn't look too far apart. I think the overall result looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna talk a bit about masking and cropping your image. This that I'm showing you right now is the unedited photo, and this is the edited one. I believe this one creates a lot more impact, and I'm gonna show you the processes I took. First, I used a preset because I wasn't really wanting to do a bunch of color on this, so I'm just gonna copy the colors. Yeah, I'm just gonna scroll down so you can see. If you want it, you can stop the video and copy the settings, but that's it. I wanted this dog to be the focus of the image and the other two subjects complementing it. So what I did was, if you hold Shift and you drag it, you can make the image closer. So that's what I did right here, like this. I think something like this. Yeah, so I think it's looking a lot more centralized on our subjects instead of just being really far away and kind of random. Don't be afraid to crop your images. Most cameras nowadays have enough megapixels for you to be cropping. Now, moving on to the masking. I want you to think about using masks to enhance the light, not manipulate it. Because if you manipulate the light, your photo is going to look artificial and unnatural. But if you enhance the light, if you understand what is happening with your light source, you may be able to enhance your photo and create some more emotion, more depth to your image. So for example, in this image right here, I know the sun was coming from here. So what did I do? I added a gradient mask, so like this, so it would simulate the light from the sun, and you want to make this really gradient, so it isn't really noticeable where you have the mask and where you don't. Now, after creating the mask, I'm gonna really exaggerate for you to see the effects of this. You go to effects and then you bump up dehaze a bit. So as you can see, this is really exaggerated, but you turn it down just a bit so it looks like the sun is stronger. Clarity down a bit and texture down a bit. After this, if you're making your light source stronger, you need to make the shadows stronger. So what I did after this, I used a tool which I think is really powerful in Lightroom, which is the Select Subjects mask. This you just hover over your subject and then Lightroom will do the rest. So for example, if I do this shadow is a bit trickier for Lightroom to get, so you may need to make like a more specific selection like this. But as you can see, if you do, it works. And after you do this, select light and then bump the exposure down a bit, which as you can see makes your subject really darker compared to before. If you do this for all the subjects, your image is gonna look like this. I believe it looks a lot better if you do this, and you are not manipulating the light. You are just acknowledging what is on your image and how you can improve it in terms of light source. Now, one more thing I want to approach on this topic. So you can see that this specific subject, he isn't all in the shadow. So this side right here, he isn't really in the shadow. So if you select him with the subject select mask, like this, you select the shadow too, there you go. We really do not want to affect all of this side. So what you do is you choose subtract, which means this subtracts a part of your mask, and then you choose linear gradient. And then what you do is you add this, like this, so this makes a softer mask on this side. So it will look a lot more natural and affect the side that is more on the shadow. Let me show it to you now. If I bump the exposure down and we zoom in, as you can see, we are not affecting this side as much as this one. And I believe this is the best way to do it. I think it looks really natural, and overall it's a pretty decent improvement. I'm going to show you the before and the after. As you can see, way more emphasized on the shadow. And if you zoom out, you can really start to see the difference. So, for example, compare these two shadows with the dog one. So if I turn it off and on, you can see the difference clearly. So in the end result, you get an image like this. I believe it's a way better image than what we started with. Now I'm going to show you another example of cropping to make your image simpler and coloring your image. So this is the unedited version. This is the edited version. As you can see, we got this lamppost on the left, which is very undesirable. It's getting cut off and our subject is like a little bit off center. So if we just cut a bit and then we center our subject, something like this, way better image instantly, just by cropping a little bit. Now, what I believe I did was bring the shadows up a bit so I could get some more detail. Then you bump the blacks a bit down so you can get some of that contrast back, as I said, and your highlights down a bit. Then you bump the vibration up. Again, small adjustments that make a big difference together. Then what I did on this image is I wanted a nostalgic look, so I got some green in the shadows. For me, the two best colors if you want to get a nostalgic look in the shadows is green and magenta. Those two colors are gonna make your photos look more vintage. Then in the midtones, because it was a warm day, I wanted to get a warm look, so something like this. And then highlights, just something to complement it, like magenta. And as you can see, a pretty big difference from the beginning in terms of editing. I believe it looks really good and it's already close to the original image. I even believe it looks a little bit better because I cropped a bit up, but that's just my personal opinion. Now moving on to the next image. This right here is a photo I took during Christmas and I liked this kid's photo so much. I believe it transmits such a good emotion, but those people in the background were ruining it. So for this photo specifically, I want to talk about S-curves and using Lightroom's AI to remove unwanted stuff from your image. If you go to this little tab, which is an eraser, I try to select these people. Sometimes it's not the most perfect tool, but sometimes it surprises. And I'm gonna tell you that sometimes it's a lifesaver. And in this case, I believe it was a lifesaver. As you can see, it's not perfect, but pretty good job. I believe I like this one a bit better. And as you can see, look at the difference. It makes your image look like it was more intentional. What I did next is I think the image looked a little bit too green and these lights weren't really emphasized. So now I'm gonna show you the S-curves. First, you should get 3 dots on your curve. This right here is the blacks, this is the shadows, this is the midtones, highlights, whites. If you bring it down in the shadows are gonna get more contrast and darker. If you want darker shadows and more contrast, you bring this down. If you want less contrast in the shadows, you bring it up. That's simple. I want some more contrast in the shadows. I want a little bit more contrast in the midtones, so the lights become a bit brighter in the highlights too. Next, these color specialized curves add color to your image. So for example, if I want the image to be a little bit more red than green, as I was saying, I just bump the midtones and the shadows up a bit to the red, already less green than it was, and I think this looks great. I think I did some more adjustments in my other photo. Yeah, I did. But I believe this is already a good starting point. Now, I think his hair is too dark, so I'm gonna bump up the shadows a bit. Now, masking this, make a radial gradient around your subject, and then what you can do is get a bit more exposure on your subject to make him pop. So this is without, this is with. Especially with the light sitting on them, this looks very natural because this makes the lights look stronger and I think it gives a really cool look. As you can see, we're really better than our starting point, in my opinion. I believe this is already a very good image, very close to the other one. Maybe a bit better because this one, when I was watching on my phone, I figured out it was a little bit too dark. And this one may work out a little bit better. Now moving on to the final image, I'm going to show you how you can achieve a better look even with small changes. This right here is the before, unedited version, and this right here is the edited one. What I did was basically just basic adjustments, normal contrast curve. As you can see, normal adjustments. I just took the green down a bit because the image was a bit too green, the yellow, and I can show you what it looks without it. Looks a little bit more green right here on the grass and on the lake. This was one of my first favorite photos that I took, and I think it looks really good. But the most important thing I want you to take out of this is you can only make an image good if what you captured was good. If the image you captured was bad, you cannot make it extremely good just because you edited and now it's a different image. So thank you for watching the video. Consider leaving a like and subscribe down below. If you want to see a video I made about photography accessories, watch it right here.